So as you're on your way to reaching a goal, which is kind of your destination that you have in mind, there's things that fuel you, or things that are your resources that everyone has the capacity to have, that fuel you on your way there, and they get you there faster, and you can last longer, and you can go further if you have these resources. And it's kind of like the analogy of like gas in a car. You can't get to your destination if these resources aren't managed. So the first resource that everyone has access to is your time. And if you're wasting your time away, or if you're chasing time away, like you feel like you're just running after time, it's really hard to accomplish your goals. Time is your life, pretty much, and how you spend your time in your day-to-day adds up to how you spend your life. And so time pretty much is your life, what you're doing with it. And I just feel like life and time is so precious and valuable that I want to use that resource as best that I can. So a couple things that I've found really impactful in managing my time is one, having a task management system, because you can't reach your goal if tasks and chores and all the other non-fun stuff is like crowding you out. And so it's kind of my philosophy, and it's a part of the getting things done philosophy, that the more all of that boring stuff and tasks are handled, the more it creates space and freedom in your life for these creative things to be able to bloom, and your goals to be able to bloom. And so I have a system where anytime I think of something, any task, do I want to hang out with a friend? Do I want to do something next January? Is there a chore I need to do? I immediately write it down, and I immediately put it in the calendar, so it immediately gets assigned to time. If I know the day I want to do it, I write it down that day. If I know the week I want to do it, but I don't know the day, I'll write it down at the beginning of that week. If I know the month that I want to do it, but I don't know anything more specific than that, I'll just put it for the first of the month, and then when I get there, I'll kind of slot it more appropriately as it gets closer. Now, the system that I've been using recently is a program called Sensama, but I used pen and paper for a long time. You could use any system that you want. I really like Sensama because it takes your to-do list and it automatically, like, it has a planning routine that helps you assign it to time, because a lot of people just have these really long running to-do lists, but I don't want to know a list of all these things that I have to do in a non-prioritized list. I want them to be prioritized by time. So that method is called building a second brain. We don't want your brain to be clogged up with chores and tasks and things like that. And so you kind of make this second brain, which for me is Sensama. You pick one place where things are going to be, not 8 different places, but one place where things are going to be. For me, it's Sensama, and that's kind of my second brain. And so now my actual brain is freed up for creativity, and it can be so much more intentional and reaching my goals and doing the fun things. The other big way that's been so impactful for me managing my time is doing the priorities first thing in the morning. Because I'm a teacher in addition to doing YouTube, and at first when I was doing YouTube, I would try to do it after work, and I just couldn't do it. And I just found that if I ever want YouTube to get done, I have to get it done before school. So I wake up at 5 in the morning because teaching starts really early. Like I have to be there at 7:30. I have to wake up early pretty much. And I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl. But kind of my philosophy is the first 10 minutes are hell so that the rest of the day can be bliss. And I hate waking up early. It's not necessarily fun initially, but I feel so accomplished to have my meaningful work done in the morning. And then I can go to work, and work is kind of a secondary priority. YouTube's kind of the first priority, and then I can do the second priority. And then I get home, and the whole day is just open for fun, and it's very intentional. But I just didn't feel that I was doing the important things in the evening. So I just feel like you got to schedule in the big rocks first, do your priorities first, and then it makes everything kind of fall in line. The next resource that everyone has access to is your mind and your mindset, and the way you kind of choose to believe certain things and beliefs that you have. And sometimes I think it's not easy to be conscious of your beliefs, at least I think for me, but I noticed a lot of my beliefs would come in the form of questions. Like they would act like they're questions, but it was actually a belief. Like I would ask questions in my head like, why would anyone want to listen to this? Like, why is this impactful for anyone? And the belief behind that question is what you're saying is not impactful. The things you're saying are not impactful. So it kind of like sneaks in as a question. But just think about like questions that you ask yourself, like, what's the worst that could happen? And a lot of those beliefs are rooted in fear. A lot of beliefs and mindsets that are not good are fearful mindsets. They feel confusing, negative, just questions. A lot of beliefs will come up, like negative beliefs for me will come up late at night. Like I'm just like laying in bed and all of a sudden just all this like negative self-talk starts happening in the form of questions usually. It's kind of like accusatory type questions. I was listening to a podcast with Julia Cameron, and she was talking about a lot of these questions that come up the night before. Write those down and then address those in the morning pages, because some of these negative beliefs tend to pop up in the evening, but you're able to deal with it better in the morning and you're in a better mindset, and you can set aside some time. You're like thinking a little bit more clearly. It's like actually write about those. And what about these questions? Like, I have a lot of questions that come up at night, and it's like, let's get to those. Let's answer these questions. Like, what do I actually believe about myself? Let's not keep it in this confusing question land. Like, let's journal, put some pen to paper until we get somewhere. And it's usually it's not until a couple pages that I feel like I'm actually making meaningful progress. The other thing that's really important with mindset is to be inspired regularly. Like, the people that you hang out with influence so much of your productivity and your beliefs, and do you surround yourself with people who actually are hopeful and actually have beliefs that life is good, or are you around people who are like, oh, life is just so hard, and they're constantly focused on how hard life is? And I think reading inspiring books, people who desire to have more for their lives, podcasts of people who desire to have more. And the third resource that everyone has to steward is money. And I feel like it's very hard to reach your goals if you're constantly putting out fires, or like scarcity with money, or really scared about how money is going to work. A lot of like mindsets and money like kind of come together, and beliefs about people that have money. So when I first got out of the house and I was trying to learn how to budget, I was like looking at all these different places, and there were different apps where they would kind of retrospectively tell you how you spent your money, like here's the categories and how much you spent. And I just didn't want something that was retrospective, like after I'd already spent it. I tried like the Dave Ramsey system with the envelopes, and I just wasn't into like the envelopes and having to go to the bank and get cash out or whatever. But what I did like about the Dave Ramsey system was that it was very organized. So basically, the way it works is you have all these different envelopes. You have an envelope for fun or eating out, an envelope for bills, an envelope, for car, whatever your specific categories will be. So actually, I have a friend who actually like works for Dave Ramsey and does like sessions or whatever. So he does it digitally, and that's what I do. So I have like probably 10 bank accounts at this point. And so when I get paid, I just sort them into the different bank accounts, and I just transfer them. So I just do transfers, boom, 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 sort it. And then when that account gets to zero, it's at zero. And I know that I don't need to spend any more in that category. So I just set a reminder, like I have a reminder in Sensama. Twice a month, I budget and I sort, and my amounts are the same. Once you get the amounts set, it's like it gets pretty boring and actually really easy. It's just like, oh, here we go, 200 to this, okay, 200 to that, and it's just all, it gets pretty easy. Actually, it's kind of monotonous. The category that I think is most important as it pertains to this and reaching your goals is I have a dreams category. One of the bank accounts is called Dreams, and I'm putting money in there, every 2 weeks, and it's for my dreams. Like, what do I want to have happen? I think a lot of people just like, oh, I don't want to get this camera, I don't want to get this microphone, or, there's some piece of equipment that maybe you want for the hobby that you're doing or something you want to make a career. People are like, it's too much money, I'm not going to do it. But then they'll spend all that money on like eating out or things that like aren't even that important to them. But because the camera like seems expensive, it's like one lump sum, you won't do it. But you'll spend a bunch of smaller sums that add up to that lump sum on like eating out. And so I would just encourage people to like actually spend money on the priorities. And to me, your creative hobby or the thing you want to make your job or a side hustle, that thing is important. And I think where you put your money shows what you value. And if you don't value yourself and your hobby, you won't put money toward it. And so I think it's kind of the first step of taking yourself seriously. Like, I'm going to put money toward this thing, toward this goal, and I'm going to do it. Okay, the fourth thing you have to steward, the resource that everyone has access to, is your emotions. For me, if any of these resources is going to deplete me, it's emotions first. This is absolutely the first resource that I will like run low on, and like the car is stalled on the side of the road on the way to the goals. Like, you just absolutely cannot reach your goals if you're depressed or anxious or lonely or just way too tired. Like, your emotions impact so much, and they influence so many decisions. And I think even people they perceive themselves to be really logical, a lot of decisions are still emotional. They're just under the surface. They're not overt, but on a subconscious level, your emotions and do people like me? Do people respect me? A lot of times this will really influence decisions kind of under the surface. So it's important to bring as many of these kind of subconscious emotions or emotions that we push down to kind of bring those to the surface. This is something I've learned a lot from Garrett, because Garrett's like more in tune with his emotions than I am, but emotions are a message. And he reads a lot of books about emotions and like how they kind of guide you. And he read one, it was all about the different types of emotions and kind of how they're guiding you and the message that they're giving you. So I'm just going to break them down into some like basic ones like you teach kids: mad, sad, glad. But if you're mad, it's a message that a boundary has been crossed. And so there are some people who get mad all the time, and it's because they have, lots of boundaries. They know what their boundaries are. Maybe they have too many boundaries. But then there are some people who pride themselves on never getting mad. And if you're not mad, it means a boundary hasn't been crossed. And so if you're never mad, it means you have no boundaries, pretty much. Like, a way to be a person who's never mad is to never have boundaries, which is a problem. So usually a lot of people who are the least mad all the time, let's say they really don't have a tendency to be very angry, have boundary issues. And so it's something to be like aware of, because these things are not necessarily directly related to goals, but you can't reach your goals if you're constantly mad or if you're constantly not mad. So boundaries are being crossed all the time. Another emotion that really kind of gets in the way or can really crowd out goals is sadness. And sadness is a message that tells you you've lost something valuable. And everyone, you have things that are important to you. There's your sense of self, there's friends or loved ones or a city or a memory. There's all these things that we value. It could be tangible and intangible. And then when you're sad, it means it's like a loss of something. And there are some people kind of pride themselves on never being sad. But the only way to never be sad is to not value things. And you have to, when you shut off sadness, you're also shutting off the part of yourself that really values things and values people and hopes for things. And the last of like these like childish emotions, like mad, sad, is glad. And when you're glad, it tells you that you're like connected, like you're connected to yourself, you're maybe connected to others, connected to the present moment, and do more of that thing. Like, pay attention to those moments and do more of that thing. So one thing is just, I think those morning pages, so like I briefly talked about like those questions that come up with your mindset in the evening, but then in the morning, sometimes it's really good to just like journal about whatever. Like, that's what I do first, is I'll just journal about whatever comes to my mind, and that's when the emotions will come up. And then once I feel like those things are kind of dealt with, then I'll go to the questions that I need to deal with next, once I get through like anything that's on my mind. And when you just keep up on journaling in the morning, like sometimes it just feels like pointless. I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? And then I get to the 2-page mark and it's like, oh, this is why we're doing this. This is what's really happening. And everyone has stuff that's going on below the surface. And like, sometimes I won't think like, oh, I don't have anything going on right now. I'm good. I don't need to journal. And then I'm like, oh, let's do it anyways. And I'll start journaling and it's like, oh yeah, stuff is going on. And I'm hard pressed to ever find a time where I don't get to something meaningful, like at about the 2-page mark. I'm never at the place where there's not something going on. Something like, we're complex individuals. We always have something going on. Like, even if we don't think that we do, even if it was something from a while back. And so it's good to just like keep up on those things, because it really impacts your goals. Like, sometimes like, oh, I'm getting kind of burnt out, tired, I'm just not feeling it. It's like, oh, it was these, 8 emotional things that have been just building up over time. And that's the reason that it's hard to actually like reach your goal. Okay, the last resource that everyone has access to is just energy, like your body, like physical energy. And I feel like a common complaint that I hear from people recently is just, I feel so tired, I feel so lethargic, I just don't feel like getting up, I'm like tired and don't feel, and sometimes there could be like imbalances, but I feel like for most people, like if you're just like normal, healthy individual, it's just, there's basic things with your body that people just aren't doing, So like, it's really important with your body to, use it. And then to fuel it, that's like Garrett's catchphrase, like use your body, fuel your body. So like using it is just like, make sure you get outside and you're active at some point during the day. Like, that's so helpful. So the way I've integrated that is I just bike to work and I get outside time and I get active time and it gets me to work and I don't have to be stuck in traffic, and it's just great. It works out so well. The other thing is then fueling your body. So what I do is it's like a protein meal replacement shake for breakfast. Then I have a morning snack. Then I have a shake for lunch. Then I have an afternoon snack, and then I have dinner. So for my snacks, I just pack those at the beginning of the week, and I just put it like in a Tupperware. So in the Tupperware, I'll put 2 veggies and 2 proteins. And so I'll eat half of that for my morning snack and half of that for my afternoon snack. And then for dinner, we use Factor. They're pretty much TV dinners, but they're fresh. They're not frozen, and they're really, really good. Like I have the salmon cauliflower one that I love, and it's so good. During all of those 5 meal times, like the breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, I always fill up my water bottle, just part of my routine that every time I eat, I fill up my water bottle. And then for breakfast and lunch, this varies. The max is, 2 times a day, I'll take a green tea pill, and that just gives me so much focus and so much energy. I really recommend that so much. Sometimes that's too much caffeine, and one day, like, I'll start to feel like kind of jittery. So sometimes I'll only do it in the morning, or I'll only do it in the afternoon. It's really beneficial in the afternoon. Like, when you get that afternoon, you're just kind of tired. It just, boom, picks you right back up. So it's so good. So what I do to make that happen, kind of the routine, is on Saturdays, I'll do an online grocery order, and I'll order all those snacks. And then Sundays in the afternoon, I'll package all those up all at once. Meal prepping or snack prepping is so impactful. Like, it just really, it helps me reach my goals. Like, I think I'm not someone who's I'm not into like food and like health and supplements. Like, I'm just not into that type of thing. But it really helps me like reach my goals. Like, just don't underestimate like water and sleep, like just the basics. I think sometimes I get like so focused on goals, and then it's like, oh, why am I so lethargic? And it's like, oh, well, you haven't been eating good food or drinking water. Like, just like get back to the basics. And so if you want to see like how like all of these routines fit together, I just did a productive vlog like a week ago, and I kind of show like all these routines, how they go together. So most of these are just like daily habits. Like, it can all be done at the same time. I think I used to feel like, oh, there's not like enough time in the day, but it can be done. Like, things are like working. Like, I feel like I've got systems dialed. Like, things are working. Like, I've got time for friends and exploring. And the point of like a good time management and task management system is so that you can like live your life, and like you can be doing fun things, and you're not spending all your time going to the grocery store 4 times a week. It's just all these things that really can like weigh you down, and they kind of create drag. Like, you want to be aerodynamic, and you make this machine, it's aerodynamic, and then you can like reach your goals faster. So yeah, those are my recommendations. Use those resources to your advantage so that they're not like a hindrance to you, but let them like propel you forward. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.